My name is Victoria Chase, and 3 days ago, my entire world went up in smoke. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't fall apart. I planned. Because when someone betrays you at your core, rips out your heart and throws it in your face, you don't mourn. You evolve. It started with a voice. A laugh, light and familiar, echoing down the hallway of the penthouse I paid for. I was supposed to be at a client lunch in Tribeca, but they canceled last minute. I didn't text Daniel. I figured I'd surprise him. God, I was so fucking naive. I unlocked the door and stepped into the foyer, heels silent against the marble. More laughter. His voice. Hers. I froze. And then I heard it, the moan. That sickening, breathless little gasp I'd recognize anywhere.
Emily.
My sister. I dropped my purse. The sound echoed like a gunshot, but it didn't matter. They didn't hear it. They were too busy fucking. I walked down the hallway like I was floating. Not real. Not present. Just drifting. I felt the world shift under me, like my bones had gone hollow. The bedroom door was open. They were tangled in my silk sheets like animals. Her bare legs wrapped around him. His hands clutching her hips. The same hands that used to cut my face and swear he'd love me forever. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I pulled out my phone, took one picture, just one. Not because I needed proof, but because I needed fuel. Rage like this doesn't sustain itself without a reminder. I hit send. To myself. Labeled it. File folder reason number 1. The end of mercy. If you are shocked by what you just heard, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Your thoughts matter. And if you want to stay in the loop for what's coming next, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a moment of this. Daniel looked up and went pale. Victoria, Jesus, it's not what it looks like. Emily shrieked and grabbed the sheets, covering herself like modesty suddenly mattered. Like she wasn't 19 and naked in her big sister's bed. I just stared. Daniel scrambled off the bed, tugging on his pants like the act of dressing could rewind time. Listen, Emily was upset and you were just comforting her with your dick? He flinched. Emily sobbed. Tori, I didn't mean to. Don't call me that, I snapped. My voice was like ice. You don't get to call me anything. Daniel reached for me, and that was when I saw it. The smirk. Not on Emily's face. His. Just a flicker.
A twitch.
The bastard was proud. Like he'd gotten away with something. Like he thought this was the end of me. I turned around. Walked out. Never looked back. Not because I was broken, but because the first step of revenge is always leaving them in their mess. Let them stew. Let them think they've won. Let them get comfortable. I checked into the Mercer that night, a glass of scotch in one hand, a black notebook in the other. Page 1. Operation Burn It All Down. Step 1. Destroy Daniel's career. Step 2. Take everything he cares about. Step 3. CK his boss. I didn't sleep that night. I spent hours combing through LinkedIn, press releases, company newsletters. Kingsley and Wolfe, Daniel's law firm, was a fortress of old money and steel-nosed ambition. And at the top of the food chain, Alexander Wolfe.
CEO.
Billionaire.
Divorced.
46. Stone-jawed, brilliant, and utterly ruthless. I knew him. Not personally, but enough. We met once at a charity gala last year. I was wearing red. He stared at me like I was the only real thing in a room full of phonies. He never spoke, but his eyes did. And now, he'd speak. I crafted the perfect resume. Stripped down my real accomplishments just enough to look hungry but not threatening. I created a fake cover story, said I was leaving PR to explore corporate communications. Bullshit. But believable. People like Alexander don't trust ambition without a little desperation. I sent it off at 8 a.m. the next morning. By noon, his assistant called. Mr. Wolfe would like to meet you in person. That evening, I showed up at Kingsley and Wolfe in a fitted navy blazer, stilettos that meant war, and a smile that said, I dare you to underestimate me. The receptionist led me to the 47th floor. The elevator opened into a minimalist glass office with a panoramic view of Manhattan and not a single photograph in sight. He was already standing.
Tall.
Broad-shouldered. Charcoal suit tailored to perfection. His eyes met mine. And for the second time in my life, Alexander Wolf looked through me. But this time, I was ready. "Victoria Chase," he said, gesturing to the chair. "We meet again." I tilted my head. "Do we?" A hint of a smile. Red dress.
Park Avenue Gala.
You caught the room by the throat. I sat down slowly, crossing my legs with surgical precision. I try to leave an impression. "You did." He leaned forward.
"So,
"Why are you really here?" I met his gaze without flinching. "Because I'm tired of cleaning up messes for other people's reputations. I want to build mine. At a place that actually values power." He chuckled.
low."
"Dangerous. You're honest. Would you have hired me if I weren't?" He studied me for a long beat. "You have enemies here, Victoria. You know that, don't you?" I smiled, sharp and unbothered. "Good." The next day, I got the call. "You start Monday." When I walked into that glass building 4 days later, I wasn't just a new employee. I was a King bomb.
And Daniel? He didn't know it yet.
But he'd just handed me the matches. Monday morning at Kingsley and Wolf smelled like money, ambition, and blood. Not literally, but that's the energy. Everyone moved like they had something to prove. Teeth bared behind business smiles. Designer heels clicking like war drums on marble floors. Women in $1,000 blouses. Men in suits that whispered power when they moved. And me? I walked in like I'd been there forever. My new title, corporate communications consultant. My real mission, revenge. Daniel didn't notice me at first. Not until the staff meeting. I sat in the back corner of the boardroom, pen in hand, pretending to take notes, while sizing up every soul in that room. Daniel entered late, sloppy tie, rushed breath, phone glued to his ear, and froze mid-step when he saw me. I didn't even blink. I just smiled. The kind of smile you give someone before you slit their throat in a dream, and they wake up sweating. He took a seat 3 chairs away, fidgeting like a child caught stealing. Pathetic. I hadn't even touched him yet, and he was already cracking. Good. Alexander entered last. The room fell silent the second he stepped inside. He didn't raise his voice.
Didn't have to.
Just looked around like a king surveying pawns. His gaze landed on me for a beat too long. And then the meeting began. I spent the next few days weaving myself into the seams of the firm. Lunch with junior associates. Accidentally dropping insights in emails to the legal teams. Being exactly helpful enough to be noticed, but not threatening. Classic manipulation. I watched Daniel spiral. He started avoiding me, ducking into elevators when I entered the hallway, fumbling through presentations like he'd forgotten how to read. I didn't have to do much. Guilt was already rotting him from the inside. All I had to do was give it a little push. Wednesday. I did my homework. I found out Daniel had been spearheading a multi-million-dollar contract renewal with a luxury hotel conglomerate. One mistake, one missed line item, could cost the firm millions. And that morning, as I sipped my oat milk latte and pretended to be deep in budget analytics, I accidentally CC'd a client on an internal draft memo with Daniel's uncorrected numbers. The email was flagged within 10 minutes. By noon, Daniel was in Alexander's office. Red-faced, stammering, drowning. I lingered outside just long enough to hear Alexander's voice cut through the walls like a blade. "Sloppiness is not just a weakness, Daniel. It's a liability." I smiled to myself and walked away. That evening, I got a summons. Not an email. Not a call. A personal note on embossed paper. "Victoria, my office. 8 p.m. AW." When I entered Alexander's office, the lights were low, and the skyline glittered behind him like a crown. He didn't look up right away. Just sipped whiskey and said, "Close the door." I did. He turned, eyes sharp and amused. "You enjoy breaking things, don't you?" I tilted my head. "What gave me away?" He stood and crossed to me slowly. "I know what Daniel did. The sister. The betrayal. I stiffened. You investigated me?
No, he said.
I observed. There's a difference. He stepped closer. You're not here for corporate growth. You're here to destroy someone. I didn't deny it.
He liked that.
Why haven't you reported him? He asked, voice quiet. Because letting him rot slowly is more satisfying, I replied. A beat of silence. Then he chuckled. You're dangerous. I met his eyes. So are you. He nodded once.
Fine.
Let's be clear. I don't care what you do to him. Just don't damage the firm. My mouth parted. You're giving me permission? I'm giving you room. He turned away, then added over his shoulder. But if you're going to destroy someone, Victoria, don't stop at the edges. Get your hands dirty. As I walked out, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Nice show today. But you're playing with fire. Unknown. He might be weak, but Alexander? He burns people for fun. I stared at the message, pulse steady, eyes cold. I already knew that. And I wasn't scared. I was ready. The plan, phase 2. Gain Alexander's full trust. Bleed Daniel from the inside, one failure at a time. Take everything he's built. And when the time's right, sleep with the king. Right where Daniel can watch it happen. People call it a promotion. But let's be honest, when Alexander Wolf calls you into his office at 10 p.m. on a Thursday, it's not about your resume. It's about the game. And tonight, I was ready to play. His assistant had gone home hours ago, and the executive floor was dark and quiet when I stepped off the elevator. I didn't bother knocking. Just pushed open the glass doors and walked straight into the lion's den. Alexander stood behind his desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, collar open, tie draped loosely around his neck. A half-empty glass of scotch sat beside a glowing laptop, and the city behind him burned gold through the rain-streaked windows. He looked up. His eyes were sharp, alert, unreadable. You came, he said. I stepped inside, letting the doors close behind me. You summoned, I replied. I answer calls from kings. That made him smirk.
Sit.
I took the leather chair across from his desk and crossed my legs slowly, knowing exactly what I was doing. He watched the movement, but didn't comment. Instead, he slid a folder across the desk. Inside, a brand new title. Executive Strategy Liaison. 6-figure salary. Direct report to the CEO. I created the role, he said, leaning back. Because people like you, they don't belong buried in communications departments. I raised a brow. People like me? Unpredictable. Dangerous. Brilliant. He sipped his scotch. People who can gut someone with a smile and still make it look like a compliment. I didn't smile back. Why me? I asked. There are women lined up for that kind of power. He shrugged. They want the spotlight. You want the throne. That's more useful. We stared at each other across the desk. Two predators in designer clothing. I reached for the folder and closed it with one hand. Is this your way of asking me to get closer to Daniel? I asked. No, he said. It's my way of asking you to stand above him. Why? Because Daniel's a disease, Alexander said. And I like to keep my company clean. There it was. The shift. He wasn't just watching me because I was dangerous. He had his own reasons. His own scars. What did he do to you? I asked softly. Alexander's jaw flexed. Nothing yet. But I see patterns. The same ones I saw in someone else who thought he was untouchable. I waited for more. He didn't offer it. I stood slowly, walked to the window behind his desk, and looked out at the city. You know, I used to think power was having control of a room, I said. Now I realize it's being able to ruin someone and still get a good night's sleep. He didn't move. Didn't say a word. Just watched me. I'll take the job, I said, turning back to him. On one condition. He raised a brow. Which is? When I bring Daniel to his knees, figuratively or literally, you don't stop me. He stood now, closing the space between us. We were inches apart. I won't stop you, he murmured. But don't forget, Victoria, this is my game. If you try to outplay me. I leaned in, lips brushing his ear. I never outplay kings, I whispered. I seduce them. Then I walked out. leaving him with his glass of scotch. And one hell of a hard-on for destruction. The next morning, Daniel's face when I walked into the executive boardroom wearing a new title badge? Priceless. "What the hell are you doing here?" he hissed, grabbing my arm when no one was looking. I pried his fingers off calmly. "Just climbing the ladder, sweetheart. Try not to trip on the first rung." He opened his mouth, probably to spew some self-righteous garbage about betrayal, but before he could say anything, Alexander stepped into the room. His hand brushed the small of my back, barely there, but enough. Daniel saw it, and suddenly, every inch of color drained from his face. The meeting started, but Daniel never recovered. He stumbled over his presentation. Misread a financial projection. Got called out, twice, by Alexander himself. I didn't say a word.
Didn't need to.
I just took notes and smiled. Later that night, I got another message. Not from Daniel. From Emily. "Emily, I need to talk to you. Emily, please." "It's not what you think." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then turned the phone over and ignored it. She'd had her chance. This was my turn. Back at my apartment, I poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and pulled up the master document. Operation: Destroy Daniel Green. Career: Crumbling. Reputation: Next. Sanity: In progress. Boss: Seduction initiated.
My phone buzzed again.
This time, unknown number. "You're not the first to try and play Alexander. He's not as easy as you think." I replied instantly. "Neither am I." There's a unique kind of pleasure in watching a man unravel, especially when he doesn't know you're the one pulling the thread. Daniel Green was fraying. He'd started skipping shaves, slurring his presentations, snapping at interns like it was their fault his life was falling apart. He still didn't know I'd forwarded that faulty memo to the client last week, the one that cost the firm a $4.3 million contract. All he knew was that Alexander Wolf had started watching him closely, that his name was being quietly removed from internal documents, that his girlfriend, me, was now sitting 2 floors above him in an office with skyline views and a personal espresso machine.
Poor baby.
I waited until Thursday morning to set off the next grenade. It was subtle. Just a misfiled email, one I'd slipped into the inbox of Kingsley and Wolf's most difficult client, Braxton Hotels International. The subject line was innocent. Daniel Green's performance concerns. The body? An internal evaluation memo I'd pieced together using fragments from HR reports and client feedback that had somehow made their way to my inbox. It suggested Daniel was unstable, disorganized, and on thin ice. There was no signature, no header, no direct accusations, just enough smoke to spark a fire. By lunch, Braxton's lead counsel was on the phone with Alexander Wolf. By 2 p.m., Daniel was pulled into a meeting. By 3 p.m., I walked past him in the hallway, and he was holding his head in his hands like it was the only thing left that hadn't betrayed him. I didn't speak, but I did smirk. And when he looked up, eyes bloodshot, I swear he knew. He just didn't know how deep I planned to cut. That evening, I stayed late. Alone. Or so I thought. Alexander appeared in my doorway like a shadow in an Italian suit. He didn't knock. He didn't need to. "You're efficient," he said, stepping inside. "Thank you," I replied, not looking up from my laptop. I pride myself on results. "You certainly deliver them." He walked to the window and stood there, watching the city like it was a chessboard. "I had someone try to sabotage a partner once," he said casually. 10 years ago. She was smarter than most. Played the long game. Got her target fired, sued, and blacklisted in 6 states. I shut my laptop and leaned back in my chair. What happened to her? She got sloppy. Got emotional. Tried to twist the knife too far. He turned. And I buried her. Our eyes locked. Message received. "You think I'm emotional?" I asked calmly. "I think you're dangerous," he said. "Which is why I haven't stopped you." He walked closer. "But let's get one thing straight. Victoria, this firm is mine. I don't care who you burn, but if your fire touches my empire, I'll drown it." I smiled. A slow, sultry thing. Duly noted. He didn't leave. Just stood there, watching me like he was trying to decide whether to kiss me or fire me. I've reviewed your performance reports, he said. You're overqualified for this position. Is that a complaint? It's a curiosity. He stepped closer. Now he was behind my chair. I like knowing the real reason people walk into my building, he murmured. I looked up at him. You already know my reason. He smiled faintly. Revenge. No, I whispered. Justice. And then
He leaned down, slow,
measured, and pressed a kiss to the corner of my mouth. Not possessive, not greedy, a warning, and a promise. The next morning, I came into the office and found a black box sitting on my desk. Inside, a key card to the executive lounge, and a single note in Alexander's sharp handwriting. Welcome to the top floor. Daniel passed by my office that afternoon. He looked like hell, tie loose, hair unwashed, paranoia dripping off him like sweat. Whatever you think you're doing, he said, voice low, you're not going to win. I stood, walked to the doorway, and looked him dead in the eye. I already am. He started talking faster. Too fast. Emily's pregnant. I blinked. That wasn't the sentence I expected. Excuse me? He ran a hand through his hair. She told me. Yesterday. I don't even know what to do. I tilted my head. Oh, Daniel. That's rough.
He stared at me,
Waiting.
begging.
For sympathy? For validation? For forgiveness? He got none of it. Instead, I leaned in and whispered, guess you should have used protection when you were screwing my underage sister. His mouth opened, but nothing came out, and I shut the door in his face. That night, Alexander texted, dinner. My place. 9 p.m. I replied with one word.
Yes.
Alexander Wolf's penthouse was exactly what I expected. Dark wood, colder steel, panoramic views of the city, like he owned every inch of it. There were no family photos. No clutter. Just sleek, intentional dominance, like everything in the space answered only to him. He opened the door in a black dress shirt, no tie, cuffs rolled to his forearms. He didn't smile. He didn't have to. Red suits you, he said. I walked in without answering. My dress was red, fitted, silent, seductive. Like a loaded weapon in silk. You didn't ask me here to talk about fashion, I said, setting my clutch on the console table. He stepped closer. No, he murmured. I asked you here because you're dangerous. And I like watching dangerous things up close. Dinner was slow, delicious, and dripping with tension. We talked about politics,
About war.
about power dynamics in the media. Not once did we mention Daniel. But he was in the room, his name pulsing between every glass of wine, every glance that lingered too long. You planned this, Alexander said finally, swirling his bourbon. All of it. Of course I did.
Why?
I sipped my drink. Because he took something from me. And I'm taking everything from him. He leaned forward, forearms on the table, eyes locked on mine. You're not like the others. I'm not trying to be. Good. Later, he showed me the rooftop. It was quiet.
Windy.
The whole city glittering below us like diamonds spilled across velvet. He stepped behind me. Close. His breath brushed the back of my neck. You know what your real power is, he whispered. I tilted my head, teasing. Enlighten me. You don't just burn bridges. You burn the ground beneath them, so no one else can ever cross again. I turned to face him. And, you like that? I respect it. His hand lifted, slowly, tracing the curve of my jaw. I want to see what happens when you stop pretending to be tame. When his mouth finally met mine, it wasn't gentle. It was deliberate, controlled, like he decided hours ago and was just waiting for the moment I'd let him devour me.
I didn't resist.
Because this was part of the plan. Because letting a man like Alexander Wolf touch me wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And it felt like power. We didn't make it to the bedroom. He lifted me onto the marble kitchen island and peeled the straps of my dress down like he was unwrapping a secret. Tell me to stop, he growled against my skin. I didn't. I couldn't. Because this wasn't just sex. It was warfare. And I was winning. The next morning, I walked into the office in black heels, no shame, and a bruise on my collarbone that no one dared comment on. Except Daniel. He cornered me outside the espresso bar, face flushed, jaw clenched. Are you sleeping with him? I sipped my coffee. Define sleeping, I said sweetly. His nostrils flared. You're disgusting. I laughed in his face. Says the man who banged his fiancé's teenage sister in her bed. His hand clenched. Emily's having a breakdown. She's scared. And this, he waved at me, trembling. This isn't you, Victoria. Oh, I said, stepping closer. You never knew me. That afternoon, I was called into Alexander's office. His assistant looked nervous. I walked in like I belonged. Alexander didn't say anything at first. He just gestured to the chair. I sat. He poured 2 glasses of scotch. Someone saw us, he said, passing me one. I arched a brow. Who?
Guess.
Daniel. Of course. Let him talk, I said. It'll only destroy him faster. Alexander studied me. You do realize, he said slowly, that if this escalates, there will be blood. Legal, personal, maybe literal. I'm not afraid of escalation, I said. He stepped forward, leaned down, and brushed his lips against my ear. Neither am I. We kissed again. Harder. Hungrier. And just as his hand slid up my thigh, just as I lost the last trace of rational thought, the door burst open. What the fuck? Daniel. Of course. Red-faced. Fuming. Frozen. Alexander didn't even flinch. He turned slowly. Green, he said coolly. You've interrupted a private meeting. This isn't a meeting, Daniel roared. She's using you. Alexander stood, calmly buttoning his shirt cuffs. Even if that were true, it says more about you than it does about her. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out, because deep down, he knew he'd already lost. When Daniel stormed out, slamming the door behind him, Alexander turned to me. You enjoyed that. I met his gaze, heart still racing. Every second. I was in my office reviewing Q3 projections when the front desk buzzed. Miss Chase? There's a young woman here to see you. Says it's urgent. I didn't need to ask who. I already knew. Emily stood in the lobby wearing oversized sunglasses, a hoodie that nearly swallowed her, and the look of a girl who'd made one very, very stupid mistake and was finally starting to realize it. I could have ignored her. Should have. But curiosity is a dangerous kind of power. And I wanted to see just how broken she'd become. I gave the nod. Send her up. She entered like a ghost, timid, pale, visibly shaking. Her eyes searched my face like she still hoped to find the sister she once knew underneath the armor I'd built since that night. She wouldn't. That girl was dead. What do you want, Emily? I said coolly, not rising from my seat. She pulled her hoodie tighter around herself. I need to talk to you. Please. I didn't offer her a chair. Didn't offer her anything.
She sat down anyway.
It was a mistake, she said, voice cracking. That night. I didn't mean to hurt you. I raised a brow. You were naked. In my bed. With my fiancé. Her eyes welled with tears. I was drunk. I didn't mean for it to happen. I let the silence stretch between us like a noose. Finally, I asked, Is that why you're here? Guilt. She hesitated, then looked me dead in the eye. I'm pregnant. I already knew. But hearing her say it, that hit different. I folded my hands. And what does that have to do with me? Daniel doesn't know, she said quickly. He's unstable. I didn't know who else to turn to. I laughed.
Loud.
Sharp. Cold. You turned to me? The woman whose life you torched? She flinched. I didn't know what I was doing. I was young, stupid.
You're still stupid, I said. But now?
You're also someone's mother. She broke. Tears streamed down her face. I need help. I don't know what to do. And there it was.
Power.
Not the boardroom kind. Not the corporate, cutthroat kind. Real power. The kind you feel when someone who betrayed you is now at your mercy. And you get to choose how much they suffer. I'll help you, I said finally, my voice like silk on a blade. Her eyes lit up. You will? Yes, I said, standing. But here's the price. She sat up straighter, bracing herself. You disappear, I said. From this city. From Daniel's life. From mine. You take that baby, you move to whatever town your heartbroken little ego can afford, and you never contact me again. She blinked. What? You're poison, I said. And this. I gestured between us. This is me giving you a cure. What about Daniel? What about him? Her lips trembled. He has a right to know. I smiled coldly. Funny. You didn't care about my rights when you were sleeping with him. She cried. She begged. And then she left. Exactly as broken as I'd hoped she'd be. That night, Alexander texted. Everything okay? Or, do I need to bury someone for you? I stared at the message. Smiled. Handled. But keep the shovel ready. The next morning, Daniel didn't show up to work. And for the first time in weeks, the office felt peaceful. I was on the 47th floor sipping coffee when Alexander stepped in, tie loosened, eyes already scanning the markets on his phone. Green's gone, he said. I played dumb. Gone where? Medical leave. HR cited stress-related complications. I sipped my latte. Tragic. He chuckled. You're not even trying to hide it anymore. Why should I? He looked at me, really looked at me. You're ruthless. I stood, walked around the desk, and brushed a speck of lint off his shoulder. I learned from the best. His hand caught mine, held it. Then he said the one thing that told me I was winning on every front. I want you by my side permanently. He wasn't just talking about the office. I saw it in his eyes. This was no longer just about Daniel. This was becoming about us. And I knew that if I wasn't careful, I'd lose the one thing I'd fought so hard to protect. Control. But for now, I'd won. The sister?
Gone.
The ex? Broken. And the boss?
Mine.
All that was left was the final move. The nameplate on the office door used to read, Daniel Green, Senior Partner. Now it reads, Victoria Chase, Strategic Operations Executive. Different font. Sharper edge. Like me. Alexander made the announcement at the Monday board meeting. Cool and clinical, like he was moving a pawn on a chessboard. Effective immediately, he said, Victoria Chase will be stepping into the role vacated by Mr. Green. Given her recent contributions to the firm's growth, this was an obvious decision. The room buzzed. Some clapped. Some nodded. Others, mostly the old guard, Daniel's little boys club, looked like they'd just swallowed their own egos.
I didn't look at any of them.
I just smiled. After the meeting, Alexander caught up with me in the hallway. Is it everything you hoped? He asked. No, I said, turning to face him. It's more. He slid a hand down the small of my back. A subtle move. Hidden by the wall of glass we stood beside. This is where you belong, he said. On top. I met his eyes. Of the firm? He smirked. Of everything. That night, I moved into Daniel's former office. I had his view.
His desk.
His parking spot. But the best part? The framed photo I found in the bottom drawer. Daniel and Emily on some beach, grinning like sin. I snapped a picture of it and texted it to him with one word. Replaced. His reply came hours later. You don't know what you've started. I stared at it for a full minute before deleting it. I knew exactly what I'd started. And I was nowhere near done. Midweek, Alexander invited me to a private lunch. Not a let's sleep together lunch. A power lunch. Rooftop terrace. Black linen tablecloths. Half a dozen deals happening across the skyline in real time. Your instincts, he said between bites of grilled sea bass, are lethal. But I need to know something. I sipped my wine. Go on. If it came down to me or your mission, he said, who would you bury first? It wasn't flirtation.
It was a test.
I smiled softly. Depends on who betrays me first. He raised his glass. To mutually assure destruction. We clinked. Back at the office, things started shifting fast. Old allies of Daniel suddenly remembered my name. HR sent me files that were accidentally misfiled, ones that painted a far uglier picture of Daniel's past at the company. Misappropriated funds, cover-ups, inappropriate relations with interns. Apparently, my little sister wasn't the first, just the youngest. That night, I stayed late, combing through everything. And there it was, buried in an old compliance file. A name I hadn't seen in years. Vanessa Reese. She used to work here. PR specialist. Left suddenly in 2021. No goodbye. No explanation. But I remembered her.
Smart. Kind.
Ambitious. She and Daniel had lunch every Thursday for 6 months. And then one day,
gone.
I ran a quick search. Found her LinkedIn. No current employer.
Weird.
Her Instagram?
Private.
Facebook?
Dead.
I leaned back in my chair. Something wasn't adding up. The next morning, I dropped her name casually during a coffee run with Alexander. He froze for half a second, then smoothed it over with a sip of espresso. Vanessa? That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Do you know why she left? He didn't answer right away. Sometimes people don't fit the culture, he said smoothly. It happens. I narrowed my eyes. Or, sometimes the culture eats people alive. He met my gaze, unblinking. Is that what you think happened? I shrugged. I think I've seen enough skeletons to start building a graveyard. Later that afternoon, Alexander texted me from his office. Come up.
Now.
I went. He was pacing when I entered. Phone in one hand, whiskey in the other. What happened? I asked. He turned. Daniel's filed a whistleblower report. My eyes widened. What? Says he's got emails, messages, records of internal misconduct. He's bluffing. Alexander handed me his phone. You tell me. I scrolled. There they were. Screenshots. Taken months ago. Photos of me and Alexander. Emails. Meeting records. A file named Sleeping Her Way Up, PDF. My blood turned to ice. He's going for scorched earth, I said quietly. Alexander's voice was steel. And I don't do blackmail. What do you want to do? He looked at me hard. Finish it. I knew what that meant. It was time for the kill shot. The one that wouldn't just ruin Daniel's reputation. It would erase him. Permanently. And I already knew how. Operation. Final move. Objective. Bury Daniel Green. Tactic. Leak his affair with my sister and the under-the-table payments he made to silence HR complaints. Collateral? Acceptable. That night, I made 2 calls. One to a reporter I used to party with in college, now working for a high-level finance blog. And one to someone I never thought I'd speak to again. Emily. Why are you calling me? She asked, her voice a whisper. I need a favor, I said. I thought I was poison. You still are. But even poison has its uses. There's a saying in the corporate world, when you dance with wolves, don't forget they bite. I should have remembered that before I let Alexander Wolf into my bed and into my plans. Because wolves don't just bite. They bleed you slow. Emily showed up at my apartment 2 hours after I called. No makeup. No tears. Just exhaustion. She looked older, like the guilt was starting to rot her from the inside out. You said you needed a favor, she said. I nodded. I need you to sign a statement. Sworn affidavit. Detailing your affair with Daniel and how it started. Her eyes widened. You want me to go public? No, I said. I want Daniel to think you will. She sat down hard on the couch. You're using me. You used me first. She said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. I spent the next few hours packaging every shred of Daniel's misdeeds into a perfectly digestible PR nightmare. The underage affair. The hush money. The HR violations. The internal sabotage. And then I added a cherry on top, a heavily edited recording of one of Daniel's old rants, where he called Kingsley and Wolf a slaughterhouse of overpaid psychopaths and said Alexander Wolf would screw his own reflection if it looked expensive enough. It was all ready. All I had to do was pull the trigger. I walked into Alexander's office the next morning with the file on a sleek black USB. This is it, I said. Everything you need to bury him. He took it, turned it in his fingers, but didn't plug it in. Close the door, he said. I did. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. I already have everything I need on Daniel. I blinked.
What?
He opened a drawer, pulled out a thick folder, and dropped it onto the desk. My heart stuttered. Inside? Printed screenshots. Financial logs. Confidential HR reports. Where did you get these? I asked slowly. I've had them for months. But you hired me. Because I knew you'd do what I couldn't, he said. I can't be seen going after him personally. Legal liabilities. Optics. But you. He smiled. You were perfect. It hit me all at once. The fast-track promotion. The sudden access. The whisper of power I thought I'd earned. He hadn't given me the reins. He'd handed me a weapon and pointed me at the target. You used me, I said. His face didn't change. I chose you. Same thing. He stood, walking around the desk until he was in front of me. I watched what Daniel did to you. I knew your rage would be real, and I needed someone with teeth. And now, he said, I need to know where your loyalty stands. I stared at him. This man I'd kissed, slept with, confided in. He'd played the long game just like me. But the difference was, he started first. I walked out of that office in silence, USB still in my pocket, and a new mission forming in my head. Because I wasn't anyone's weapon. Not anymore. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at two options. Option 1. Deliver the USB. Let Alexander finish what he started. Let Daniel go down, and walk away knowing I was just a pawn on someone else's board. Option 2. Use what I'd found on both of them, Alexander and Daniel, and burn the entire game to the ground. But doing that meant exposing everything. My sister. The affair. The revenge. The sex. The manipulation. Everything. The next morning, I opened my email and composed a message to every board member at Kingsley and Wolf. Subject line. Truth comes in fire. I attached the files. Then paused. My finger hovered over the mouse. Was I ready? To end it all? To lose the job, the power, the image I'd built? To finally be free? And then I clicked. Send. Within an hour, my phone lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. Texts. Calls. Voicemails. Alexander. Daniel. HR legal. And one message from an unknown number. You've made a very powerful enemy, Miss Chase. Hope it was worth it. I stared at it, then smiled. Because for the first time in this entire game, I wasn't playing by anyone's rules but mine. The fallout didn't explode. It detonated. By 9:17 a.m., Kingsley and Wolf was in full lockdown. Legal was scrambling. The board was demanding explanations. 2 clients pulled out. HR shut down internal systems. And in the middle of all of it? Me. The woman who threw a Molotov cocktail into a billion-dollar firm and didn't blink when it burned. Alexander called. 10 times. I didn't answer. His assistant sent me a message. Mr. Wolf says this can still be cleaned up. Cleaned up? He didn't get it. I wasn't interested in sweeping up glass. I wanted to slice throats with it. At 11:04 a.m., Daniel made his move. Not through legal. Not through HR. He showed up. At my apartment. Banging on the door like a lunatic, screaming my name. Victoria. Open the fucking door. I didn't. I watched from the peephole as he raged, his voice cracking, eyes wild. You ruined me. You fucking bitch. The neighbors were peeking out their doors. Someone called security. By the time they got there, he was on his knees in the hallway, sobbing into his fists. Not sorry. Just caught. I pressed charges. Stalking. Trespassing. Verbal threats. He was taken in without incident. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Because hours later, someone broke into my office. Nothing was stolen. Just trashed. Drawers yanked open. Files scattered. Glass from a shattered picture frame glinting on the carpet. And written on my whiteboard in red Sharpie. This isn't over. Security cameras caught nothing. Figures. Wolf's building was top tier. You don't miss a break-in. Not unless you let it happen. I knew what this was. Alexander's warning. He wasn't going to sue me. He wasn't going to fire me. No, he was going to psychologically crush me. Make me second-guess every shadow, every footstep behind me in the parking lot, every sound outside my apartment window at 2 a.m. But I'd already lived through hell. And I built a throne there. The next day, I walked into Kingsley and Wolf with my head held high, heels clicking like gunshots. The elevator doors opened to silence. Everyone stared, some with fear,
Some with awe.
most with hate.
Perfect.
Let them watch. Let them see the woman who brought titans to their knees. Alexander was waiting in his office. No guards. No lawyers. Just him. And a glass of scotch he didn't offer me. Do you have any idea what you've done? He said, voice low. Yes, I replied. I exposed the rot. I ended the cycle. You exposed yourself. He stood. Every word in that email traced back to you. Every file. Every accusation. The board wants you gone. Then fire me. He stared. Then smirked. I can't. Why not? Because, he said, voice like poison silk, you're the only one who knows where the bodies are buried. I didn't flinch, because I'd buried most of them myself. And now, it was time to dig one more grave. That night, I called my old college friend, the same one I fed the Daniel exposé to. But this time, I gave her something even bigger. Wolf's blackmail network. He thought he was careful, but his ego made him sloppy. A few misdirected emails. A forgotten burner number. One in turn with a conscience. And now I had enough to bury him. Threats. Payoffs.
Corporate espionage.
Deals cut behind closed doors in exchange for silence. Alexander Wolf was a businessman, but he was also a criminal. The article dropped the next morning. Front page of a major business outlet. Wolf in sheep's clothing, how a corporate titan silenced his enemies. By noon, Alexander was trending on Twitter. By 3 p.m., the firm's website was down. By 5 p.m., federal regulators had arrived at the office. By midnight, Alexander had disappeared.
Gone.
Vanished. Just like Daniel. I sat alone in my apartment that night, glass of wine in hand, staring out at the glittering skyline I'd once sworn to conquer. And I realized something. I didn't want a throne anymore. I wanted peace. I wanted silence. I wanted the war to end. My phone buzzed. A private number. I answered. Hello. Silence. Then, you're ruthless, Victoria. I recognized his voice instantly. Alexander. I think I'm in love. Then he hung up. I stared at the screen, smiling. Not because I felt love. Not because I wanted him back. But because he thought that was love. Control. Obsession. Destruction. Men like Alexander couldn't love. They could only possess. But I destroyed.
And I survived.
I used to think closure came in the form of an apology. A breakdown. A ruined man begging for forgiveness. But standing in the smoking wreckage of everything I burned down, Daniel's career, Alexander's empire, my sister's innocence, I realized something else. Closure isn't about their punishment. It's about your peace. And mine was hard won. The media storm raged for weeks. Kingsley and Wolf was gutted from the inside. Regulatory bodies froze half their assets. 3 board members resigned. Daniel's scandal grew teeth. Once the press got hold of Emily's affidavit and that little bombshell she was underage at the time, he vanished from public life. Rumor was he left the country. Good. Let him hide in shame. Let him try to rebuild from the ashes while every Google search of his name spits out the truth. Corporate predator caught with minor, scandal rocks investment firm. I made sure that was the headline. Over and over again. Alexander? No one's quite sure where he is. One article claimed he was in Dubai. Another whispered South America. One woman swore she saw him in Milan with a briefcase full of burner phones. But I don't care. He can disappear into the shadows for all I care. Because I left a scar on him. The kind no amount of money or distance will ever fix. As for Emily, she's in Ohio, living with an aunt, working part-time at a bookstore. She sent me a letter. Long handwritten, regrets soaking through every word.
I didn't reply.
Because some things don't deserve forgiveness. Some betrayals should rot exactly where they were buried. I walked away from the corporate world, packed up my office, left the skyline behind, sold the apartment, took my savings and bought a cabin 3 hours north, near the water, quiet,
Clean.
no suits, no power lunches, no manipulation,
Just me. And silence.
and the sound of birds at dawn. The first few weeks felt strange, like I was detoxing from a drug. But slowly, the adrenaline faded, and I started to feel again. One afternoon, a woman knocked on my door. She had red hair, sharp eyes, and a camera hanging from her neck. "I'm with Harper and Pike Media," she said. "We're doing a piece on women who've reclaimed their power through revenge. Your name came up."
Of course it did.
"I'm not interested in being your villain," I told her. She smiled. "Actually," she said, "I think you're the hero." I didn't give her the story. Not yet. But I kept her card. Because one day, when I'm ready, the world will know the truth. The full truth. Not just the headlines. Not just the rumors. But what it really means to be betrayed by the man you love and to rise, unapologetically, from the rubble. Sometimes I sit by the lake, wine in hand, watching the sun bleed into the horizon. And I remember Daniel's face. His panic. His weakness.
His audacity.
Then I remember Alexander's voice in my ear, all silk and venom. "You're ruthless, Victoria. I think I'm in love." And I laugh. Because if they thought that was love, then they never deserved me. Revenge didn't ruin me. It revealed me. I'm not the good girl. Not the victim. Not the weak one left crying on the bathroom floor. I'm the consequence. The reckoning. The one they write warning labels about. And to every man who ever thought he could cheat me, betray me, use me, let this be your lesson. I don't just get even. I end the game. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. Would you choose love or loyalty? And don't forget to subscribe for more true secrets every day.